And that's about how many I take out to start with. And I'm just gonna make sure to pull this down, give it just a little bit of a, and again, I'm gonna ditch all of these, and then once all of these all the way across, sometimes because I think on this one, I think one or two and I'm gonna be good. Now I'm going to move into this block right here. And we shall be done with that throat space. And again, it would be real tempting for a lot of new quilters to want to go in and just fill in certain areas, but there's really not a point. This quilt could have gotten an edge to edge as well. With a nice medium cream or tan. But it is going to look pretty awesome with all the ditching. Just out of curiosity to see how low I can go on that throat space. Go across, back, up, over, and all the way down. Rich brought up that he thought maybe it might be a spool of thread, and it could be that, but that's a rarity. I know that that's a big go-to thing for a lot of people immediately, but I find that it can happen, but it's pretty rare that that happens, that you can let the thread spool take the responsibility for it. Sometimes it's simply someone has messed with your tension and you didn't realize it. Go up here. Or time for a new needle. Okay, so that's it. In fact, I'm hearing it now. Now I can hear it. So my needle at the top of this quilt, and I'm gonna scooch down there and I'm gonna quilt a little bit, and I want you to listen to that pop, pop, pop. See if we can get it on the so pop, 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 pop. almost like it's going through plastic, and that's when you know you have a needle that it's time to change. So that definitely is part of the problem, is that was right on the edge this morning. I think this particular needle has done probably about 4 or 5 quilts, and a lot of them were batiks, and I used a lot of metallic thread on a couple quilts, so it's definitely time to change the needle. And I think that was it. And actually I had forgot that I had done a ton of metallic work with this needle. Had I have not used metallic, I probably would have been able to get 1 or 2 more quilts. And I know I hear all the time, you know, needles are cheap, change a needle for every quilt, and that's fair. I don't do that. I change my needles when I start to hear the pop, 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 pop. Most of the time, unless I'm working on a quilt with a lot of heavy batiks, or it's a piecer who has used a ton of sizing or starch, like myself. And I use the, I think we've talked about this many times before, but I use the MR, which are the high-speed industrial kind of strength needles. And you can always check out the, we're going to have a needle tutorial going up here soon. We're going to talk specifically about needles and different types of needles. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, let's get a shot of this row. We've got our first throat space all done. We're going to roll. And like I said, there's going to be texture in low light. With all the filming lights, though, it's hard to see the texture. But again, this is definitely a piecer's quilt. So, and that took, I would say this throat space took about 3 hours of ditching. And I'm kind of slow and I took a lot of breaks. So there we go. And bounced to another quilt in the interim. And I am looking over. I want to make sure that there's nothing that I missed so that I don't have to come back. And I see that I missed a spot right here, 2 seams. So I'm going to come back and ditch those and then roll the quilt. And I'm going to keep working down this quilt. And then I'll see you towards the bottom of the quilt. Okay, so now we are at the bottom of the quilt and I have done the complete body. Everything is ditched and the border is done down the side. So now I still need to complete the bottom border. Now I've ditched between the actual body and the border of the quilt. So my next step is going to be, I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to baste the bottom of the quilt. Now obviously there's lots of different ways to do this. This is kind of the quick way on a normal quilt that I do it. So I've got my machine set. Let me take it off of the, undo my gears. Okay, so now I am where I need to be. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to head over. I've taken out 3 pins, and that's about how many I take out to start with. And I'm just going to make sure to pull this down, give it just a little bit of a nice taut tug to there. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove my pins, put them right in my pin dish. I'm going to take out about 4 or 5 pins. Make sure not to nail yourself with those pins. Okay, now I'm going to pull that back, and what I like to do is I just like to go ahead and use a pin and put it there just to keep it out of the way. And again, I'm going to use these 2 fingers, and I am going to pull that down to keep it nice and straight. If you wanted to, you could go ahead and put channel locks on if you have your channel locks. I go ahead and I just pull it taut and I work my way right across. So I make sure to take that out of the leader. Move my pin dish down. Take out about 4 or 5 more pins. Roll that down. Put another pin in it. And I want to make sure if I miss a spot to go back and get it, because it's going to make it a lot easier for me to finish that bottom border, especially if it were a wider border. And I'm just going to pull that down. And notice also as I work my way across, it's very easy to kind of pull away from the hopping foot. And if you do, you're going to be pushing fullness this way. What I like to do is actually kind of pull my fullness in towards the needle. That way everything stays straight. I don't distort the bottom border of the quilt. And again, I want to keep this tight because I'm going to be doing the 45-degree chevrons, and if I don't have this tight, then I'm going to end up getting tucked. So I want to keep it nice and tight. Go ahead, take those pins out, get my rulers out of the way. Pull that back. Come on down, pull it into the needle, pull it into the needle. Watch your fingers, make sure you don't sew a finger to the quilt. We don't want that. Come on down. And again, take out 3 more pins. And of course, when I pin my quilt to the leader, I don't do head to tail pinning. I actually do about an inch, inch and a half between pins. There's no reason to cause all of that distortion in the edge of your quilt. And when you pin head to tail at the edge of your quilt, I think it gives it some distortion. Okay, now I'm just going to go all the way, pull that out. Get rid of my leader. Pull that down, pull it down and towards the needle. And let me fix that little seam there. There we go, little long arm repair there. Over and up. And now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to mark out that border. So now what I've done is everything is basted on the edge. I've located the center of my border and I put a chalk mark right in the center, and now I'm going to head all the way over to the left side, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark my way into the center. So here we are down at the left side. I already have my miter marked. Whoops. Let me get some new chalk here. Got new chalk. There's my corner. Now I'm going to work my way in an inch. And again, I'm going to keep my 45 degree on the seam, and I'm going to go in until my tape hits that miter spot. And I'm going to mark and work my way all the way into the center. And once I do that, I will work my way from right to left. And that keeps, just like when we did the top border when we started, that keeps that border perfectly balanced from the corner in, and that'll keep the oddball in the center. Okay, now I'm coming close to the center here, so now I ended there. I'm going to bring this over, and it's almost perfect. It's a little bit short. I'm going to go ahead, put that right in the center. Now I'm going to head all the way down to the right. And I'm going to locate my miter there. And then I'm going to repeat the same process in to the center. One thing to remember is you always want to keep this 45-degree line right on that seam. And if the quilt is a little cattywampus, you still want to err to the seam because visually that will look correct once it's quilted and hanging or quilted and laying on a bed. Now she's a very traditional piecer, and she likes the very traditional look. But I'll tell you what, if I had my druthers, I would put metallic in these chevrons, and that would just really bring these beautiful dark browns to life. Line that up. Okay, and so now I have matched up. I am in the center. All is well. Now we're going to head all the way over to the left, and I'm going to go ahead and quilt this out. Okay, so we've got that all marked. We're going to come ahead out to the edge, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work my way into the binding line and then into the body of the quilt, out on the same line, over, line up my ruler, in, out, work my way all the way to the center, and then pivot, and then we will work our way all the way down and to the end. Okay, so now we are done with the border. Let's go ahead and take this quilt off the frame, and then we'll hang it up after I trim it and see what we got. Okay, so now we have this beautiful Gypsy wife quilt all done, and I have to say, I love it. I love it. I love it much more than I thought I would with just stitch work. And the double bat just brings it to life. It's got that beautiful texture. It brings out every bit of her wonderful piecing in this particular piece, and it just looks fantastic. And I love the frame on the outer edge. I think that chevron was a perfect choice. Like I said, this is definitely a piece that it's a piecer's quilt. It is not a surface quilter's quilt. There's not a lot of places that I would have wanted to show off at all. And I think the ditch work brings so much more to it than going in to do any continuous curve. I had considered that, I think, when we talked at first on a few areas, but now when I look at it, I just see the beautiful piecing, and I think that's exactly what this quilt needs, because I think this is one of those quilts that it's a time-consuming piece by piece quilt to actually piece and put together and organize. So I think it turned out fantastic. So we will see you for the next quilt down the road. Take care of yourself, take care of each other's, and we'll see you shortly.